At this time, it's my pleasure to welcome the radio audience to the weekly luncheon meeting of Hamilton Rotary Club. It is being held at the Royal Hamilton Amateur Dinghy Club, located 25 Bermuda Road, Paget. Our radio broadcast is warmly sponsored by Colonial Group International and the parent company of the Colonial Groups of Companies. Today's speaker will be introduced by Rotarian Major Barrett Deal and will be thanked by Dr. George Cook.
Past President Betty Jean, fellow Rotarians and guests, it is my delight this afternoon to introduce our guest speaker, who is Patrick Tannock, Managing Director at AXA XL, serves as Chief Executive Officer of XL Bermuda Limited's XLB Insurance Operations. He is responsible for strategic direction, underwriting profitability, leadership of XL's Bermuda insurance operations, and is also the president of the XL Foundation, the company's philanthropic unit. Mr. Tannock has more than 30 years of experience in the international insurance and reinsurance industry. Prior to joining XLB, he served as Executive Vice President of ACE Bermuda, as well as Chief Underwriting Officer and Director of the company's Specialist Directors and Officers Subsidiary Corporate Officers and Directors Assurance Limited. He has also held executive brokerage positions with Marsh & McLennan prior to joining ACE. Mr. Tannock is currently Chairman of the Association of Bermuda International Companies. He was appointed to the position in January 2015. He also sits on the Bermuda First Executive Committee. He is a founding member of the Financial Intelligence Agency Board. Mr. Tannock is also served as a member of the Outstanding Directors Advisory Board, former co-chair of the Bermuda Professional Liability Underwriting Society, known as PLUS Conference, and he is a former member of the Bermuda Hospitals Board, the Bermuda Government's Board of Education, and the Board of Directors to Butterfield Bank. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration, cum laude, with a major in Insurance and Finance from Austin P. Barney School of Business and Public Administration, University of Hartford, and a Certificate of Participation in the Executive Management Program from the Graduate School of Business of Stanford University. In January of 2011, he became the first Bermudian to be inducted into the Hall of Fame at the University of Hartford's Barney School of Business. In 2017, February, he was inducted as an honorary fellow of the Bermuda College. He is also a regular participant and speaker at professional and educational conferences and panel discussions. He's a former member of the North Village, he's a former member of the PHC Soccer Club, not the North Village Community Club. He has been married to Shaquita for 25 years, and they have two sons, Matari and Komari. My fellow Rotarians, despite him being a member of PHC, please join me in welcoming Mr. Patrick Tannock to the podium.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction. I think it was kind anyway, until you mentioned about North Village Club. Yeah. So I'm going to speak today about Bermuda as an international business jurisdiction in an era of change, and what we must do to remain relevant as a jurisdiction. I plan to cover 4 main topics: Bermuda's journey to date. It's always important to establish where we've come from to know where we are going. Is that better? Number 2, the key challenges that Bermuda has faced over the past 12 to 18 months. And number 3, Bermuda's value proposition, which I believe is sound. And finally, number 4, and this is very important, what we need to do to remain relevant. So with that, let's get started. In terms of our journey, the Bermuda market is a dynamic, solution-oriented, and entrepreneurial marketplace that is fostered a culture based on innovation and calculated risk. Over the last 30 years, Bermuda, as an international business jurisdiction, has consistently demonstrated its relevance, resilience, and adaptability to change. We are part of a global, technology-fueled economy where change is literally changing faster, where complexity is the norm, in a world that is not just flat, but hyper-connected. Everyone is being asked to do more with less. And an accelerated rate of innovation is impacting our lives and the markets in ways that we could have never imagined in our lifetime. Whoever would have thought that a phone would be responsible for us talking less? Or that a fridge could be used in a cyber attack? Never in the history of mankind have we been more interconnected and interdependent. But paradoxically, against this backdrop, we have so many countries around the world shifting away from universal civic nationalism to the blood, soil, and ethnic sort. We are seeing positive patriotism warping into negative nationalism, with a benign love of one's country, that spirit that impels the Americans to salute the stars and stripes, and the Brazilians to cheer on the Brazilian national football team, is being replaced by an urge to look at the world with mistrust. Brexit, the 2016 presidential elections in the United States, and the emergence of the US-China trade war. The irony of all this is that the world's greatest challenges, income inequality, climate change, and technological disruption, will require coordinated, multilateral cooperation from governments, corporations, and non-governmental organizations. No one institution, individual, or country can address these issues in isolation. But far too often, we are operating in silos, often with opposing views on the way forward. So, what have these issues got to do with Bermuda? Well, they have everything to do with Bermuda. As contrary to popular belief, Bermuda is not another world. Bermuda is very much part of the global village. And these issues, climate change, growing inequality, and technological disruption, are the genesis of the challenges and the opportunities that we are experiencing as an international business jurisdiction. So number two, let's talk about some of these challenges. Although we have been extremely fortunate not to have been hit by any physical hurricanes recently, our adaptability and resilience as a jurisdiction has been severely tested in the last 12 months. And we have weathered a series of economic hurricanes, the severity and frequency of which I haven't seen in my 30 years in the business. So, what are these economic hurricanes? Well, let's do a quick recap of the last 12 months. We have had the Paradise Papers. Then quick on the heels of that, the U.S. Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Then close behind that came the EU Council Code of Conduct, with economic substance requirements committed to by the Bermuda government to stay off the EU blacklist. From a market perspective, propelled by climate change and technological disruption, the global risk landscape continues to evolve at warp speed. New and existing perils are becoming more severe and frequent, as interconnected risk has the capacity to generate large losses that can potentially trigger costly secondary impacts, such as, but not limited to, supply chain issues, reputational damage, and disruption of the power grid. A little closer. Now, compounding the situation, the market is also dealing with consolidation, increasing regulatory demands, an intensely competitive trading environment, a race to harness data to achieve better predictability, enhanced solution options, and ultimately a competitive advantage. And last but not least, how to effectively utilize technological innovation, insurtech, and fintech. The list goes on and on. Never before has Bermuda's relevance and sustainability as an international business jurisdiction faced so many potential game changers. Bermuda has a great track record of responding to the opportunities and challenges that come from change. But we must acknowledge that this is very different, very different. This is not a remake of some old movie or a sequel. No one has seen this movie before. This is unprecedented and will require an unprecedented response. But we, as a prominent IB jurisdiction, are still standing, and there is no doubt that we will overcome these challenges. I am absolutely confident that we will get through this. It will look different when we get on the other side, but we will survive and we will thrive. So, how will we do it? Well, let's take a look at our value proposition as a jurisdiction, which I believe is uniquely situated to deal with the opportunities and challenges that come from change. So I'm going to cover some of the key components of Bermuda's value proposition as a jurisdiction. I'll mention 10, but by no means is this list exhaustive. And if anybody has any more that they want to add, then by all means bring it on. Number one, a key component of our value proposition as a jurisdiction has been and continues to be our ability to respond very quickly to change. As product cycles continue to contract, speed to market is critical, and those holding the capital that can deploy that capital the fastest to the opportunity stand to make the most for the longest. Number two, Bermuda has a strong, prudent, yet pragmatic regulatory framework. We have an internationally credible regulator in the form of the BMA, as evidenced by Bermuda achieving Solvency II equivalency. This regulatory framework enables businesses to operate on a global scale. Additionally, Bermuda is a jurisdiction focused on transparency and compliance and has signed multiple tax information exchange agreements. Number three, innovation. Bermuda has a history of innovation in international business, particularly related to the insurance sector. With an agile and collaborative approach, Bermuda has also been able to quickly adapt to business opportunities. Most recently, this has been demonstrated by the approach to digital asset business and initial coin offerings. Number four, timely responsiveness by key stakeholders. Key stakeholders like politicians, private sector business leaders, government employees, and regulators are available and accessible and have a collaborative mindset to ensure that Bermuda continues to be a domicile of choice for international business. Number five, a stable government and commercial courts. The stability of the government, along with a robust and tested commercial court system, have been strengths for Bermuda. Number six, geographical location. Bermuda is ideally situated with close proximity to the U.S. East Coast and daily flights to U.S. gateway cities, Toronto and London. Also, our favorable Atlantic Standard Time makes the island suitable for companies serving global markets. Number seven, we have shown responsiveness to external threats. The proactive approach to external threats like U.S. tax reform, the Paradise Papers, and the EU blacklisting, etc., helps maintain and differentiate the Bermuda brand in an ever-complex environment. Number eight, this is one of my favorites. We are the best situated domicile to provide low-frequency, high-severity type products. as the infrastructure and regulatory environment allows better efficiencies. This in turn provides value to our clients in the form of unique, customer-focused solutions and high-quality, efficient capacity. Number 9, we maintain sensible barriers of entry for financial and high-quality intellectual capital. The market is focused on providing superior services and execution excellence, while remaining user-friendly and solution-oriented. Number 10, the relationships that have been established with our customers are authentic, and the value proposition for the Bermuda market is compelling. For example, we are one of only a few jurisdictions on the planet where a client can buy $1 billion of high-quality capacity from highly rated carriers within one block in 24 hours without getting in a taxi. So, what do we need to do to ensure and grow our relevance as a market and an international business jurisdiction? Even though our value proposition as a leading IB jurisdiction and marketplace is not broken and has served us well, we must continue to evolve, and there's an old saying that is as true today as the day it was first uttered. Momentum never sleeps. It either goes up or it goes down. Now, Bermuda has an excellent reputation, but the new paradigm will severely test our character and will determine who we really are. Do we have what it takes to sustain our cutting edge? So let's explore what we can and should do. There is no other jurisdiction, at least in my opinion, that is better situated to capitalize on the opportunities that come from change. But neither markets nor jurisdictions run themselves. People do, and everyone has a role to play. I believe we must continue to do what we do well, but with a growth mindset to doing it even better to ensure that we remain relevant and current as a market and a leading IB domicile. Specifically, there are 8 things that I believe that we must do to remain relevant. Number 1, we must improve the speed of execution. We have to build on and utilize our competitive advantage of speed to market to provide real-time solutions to the opportunities that come from change. Collectively, both industry and government must work together to ensure that we minimize any bureaucracy that could negatively impact this competitive advantage and identify any areas of friction in order to enhance our speed of execution. And that also includes ensuring that we can continue to easily attract fresh, high-quality intellectual capital while continuing our commitment to retain and develop our current intellectual capital to ensure a win-win to drive innovation. Number 2, proactive adaptability. History is littered with industries and jurisdictions that failed to adapt and got left behind. Technological advances and surplus capital are resulting in unprecedented disruption, which will ultimately turn the current value chain upside down. We are in a period of extreme fluidity, and what it will look like in 5 to 10 years is hard to predict, but it won't look like it does today. We must build the Bermuda platform on the premise of adaptability and embrace a growth mindset to successfully respond to this new paradigm by ensuring that skill sets, legislation, organizational policies, and economic policies, and our business model not only keep pace, but can anticipate and adapt rapidly to change. Number 3, and this is really critical, and all of us in this room have a role to play. We must remain vigilant. There's a lot of noise out there about Bermuda being a tax haven, and for the record, we are not. Bermuda is a low-tax jurisdiction that honors its commitments with a great track record of paying claims and complying with all international regulatory requirements. And because this is so important, I'm going to say it again. Bermuda is a low-tax jurisdiction that honors its commitments with a great track record of paying claims and complying with all international regulatory requirements. Bermuda is also a world leader in transparency, and we must ensure that we assertively sort fact from fiction. We must remain vigilant and be our own best advocate for our value proposition as a market and an IB jurisdiction. Number 4, trust walks in on foot and rides out on horseback. We must be vigilant in maintaining trust with investors, customers, and the people of Bermuda. Whether it's insurance/reinsurance, building on our sterling reputation of paying our claims quickly, whether it's honoring our commitments to our investors, and just as critically, being respectful of Bermudian culture, as well as the aspirations and values of the people of Bermuda. Number 5, we must focus on value for service. Bermuda is a service economy. We don't make anything. Our products are service and intellectual capital. We must not confuse bricks and mortar with sustainability. Capital, both intellectual and financial, is increasingly more sophisticated, opportunistic, and fluid. Capital will always go where it is well treated and can secure the best return. And service should not be confused with servitude. They are two completely different things. This is not about kissing up. It's about economics, pure and simple. And in a world that is not just flat, our customers, be they clients or tourists, all have choices, and we want them to choose us. Now, as an industry, the focus of late has been on process and product innovation. However, we must ensure that behavioral innovation has a seat at the table with product and process innovation, with the goal to enhance the customer experience, to differentiate ourselves, and increase our value. We must invest in soft skills, and we all need to raise our game, and that means providing service excellence and value. Collectively, we must all act with a heightened sense of urgency to provide value for service and continue to evolve and innovate. We must become more user-friendly, friction-free, and solution-oriented. And it doesn't matter if you are blue-collar, white-collar, or new-collar. If you are in the executive suite or on the cutting edge of technological disruption or in the trenches, it's irrelevant. We must give value for service. In today's world, there is no room for arrogance. Park it at the door. And that goes for all of us, employees and employers, Bermudians and non-Bermudians. Park it at the door. Number 6, technology. Fear is the enemy of growth. We must be courageous and act with a heightened sense of urgency by embracing technologies such as machine learning, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence to enhance solution options to new and existing issues and risk. We must as a jurisdiction, do a better job of harnessing data when making material decisions impacting this jurisdiction that are less emotionally premised and ultimately more objective. Number 7, diversity and inclusion / talent. Companies don't run themselves. People do. And those of you who know me personally know that diversity and inclusion is something that's very near and dear to my heart. So this point is very important to me. Statistics have shown that companies that embrace diversity in hiring practices outperform their peers, are more innovative, are more in touch with their diverse clients, and are generally more progressive and forward-thinking. This means a selection of qualified candidates of diverse backgrounds, whether of different nationality, race, gender, religion, or sexual preference. We must continue to tap into the best and the brightest intellectual capital around the world and within these 24 square miles to find solutions to offer differentiated and enhanced products and new ways to address risk. Now, although I acknowledge that diversity and inclusion is not just about identity group representation, there is a clear lack of racial and gender diversity in the industry. That is the economic engine of the country. And we don't have to deny that there has been some progress has been made to have an honest conversation about the real challenges and issues that remain to level the playing field of opportunity. With a real sense of urgency, we must strategize as to how we can increase diversity and inclusion at all levels. We must aspire to be a leader in diversity and inclusion. Let's seize the opportunity to harness the power of diversity and inclusion to generate sustainable solutions for our clients and ultimately for the world, today, tomorrow, and years to come. Number 8, collaboration. Real listening brings us closer together. Continued collaboration between government, international business, unions, and other community stakeholders is critical to ensure that Bermuda remains a leader in international business. That is why it is critical that everyone in Bermuda fully understands the value proposition of international business for the island's economy and the responsibility each of us has for ensuring that we maintain that value. We cannot afford to be polarized on this issue. We must never forget that the challenges for Bermuda to remain relevant in the global marketplace are relentless. And the challenges and the opportunities cannot be addressed or capitalized on with a silo approach. We must work together, and that means all of us. In conclusion, I've said a lot, and I'll be the first to acknowledge that anyone who thinks they can predict the future is a poor student of history. However, I do know that there will be peaks and valleys, and I certainly don't have all the answers. But as long as we don't become insular with our thinking and revert to pursuing stability rather than embracing the opportunities that come from change, we will not only survive, we will thrive and flourish as a jurisdiction of choice. I believe in the resilience and relevance of Bermuda. And I believe in our collective ability as both Bermudians and non-Bermudians to seize the opportunities that come from change. I hope you do too. Thank you for listening.
That should be a standing ovation. Everybody stand up. The best speech I've heard.
Are there any questions for Patrick at this time?
Better than ones I get.
Any questions for Patrick at this time?
Yes, I have one question. You talked about what we have to do to remain relevant. Can you think of anything we should not do as a jurisdiction?
The one thing thank you for that question, Mr. Brock. I think the one thing that we can't do is think that we have all the answers and become insular for our thinking. And I think I mentioned that during the speech. We really have to make sure that we explore all options, if you will, for solutions. And I think embracing technology, that will enhance our solution options materially. So I think when you think you got it all figured out and you don't need to listen to anybody and you stop learning, I'm a big fan that learning agility lasts throughout your lifetime. And we must all embrace that. I think that we never have it all figured out. I mean, when you think you'll have it all figured out, that's when it's over. So to me, you know, embracing technology and just making sure that we don't become insular for our thinking.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Another question. You talked a little bit about the alternative marketplaces to Bermuda, and how one relates to another, or competes with another, or is more dominant than another.
Well, it's not my place to actually speak about the other markets. We have to be aware of what their value propositions are so that we can maintain our competitive edge and know what we're up against, so we can make conscious decisions as far as what works for us. I think that Bermuda has had a long track record of success for many, many years. I think the secret is out. So there's several jurisdictions that are trying to replicate our success, which means to me that we have to take our game up to another level. You know, I think we always have to be abreast of what the other jurisdictions are doing. And some of them are doing some things very well. I don't think they're doing things as well as we are in terms of, you know, how we actually work together as a community in terms of, you know, any legislation that comes about is a result of a partnership between international business and the government. So I think that, you know, we always have to, like I said, be cognizant of what other jurisdictions are doing. But I think our value proposition is strong on its own.
Yes, Patrick, that was a brilliant, powerful speech. I would like to get your feedback relative to how you feel about the social context and the social environment in Bermuda as it would impact international business. And with that in mind, what role, if any, does international business have in a commitment to the social wholesomeness of the community in which it operates?
That's a big question, Glenn. Should have known that coming from you. But, let me just say this. Part of our value proposition is economic, political, and social stability. And I think it's critical that those things be maintained, or else it becomes a very unattractive place to be in. I believe that the international business community are probably the largest contributors to our GDP in terms of contributions, whether it's taxes or whatever the case it might be. I do believe also that we have a strong commitment to social responsibility. You know, we're in the schools, we're doing all kinds of interesting things. We're sharing freely of our intellectual capital with the government to come up with solutions. So I think that, you know, in a country like Bermuda, which is only 24 miles long, unlike other jurisdictions where if you're making a certain income, you very rarely come to people with another income, we're all basically living right next to each other. So we have to be cognizant of the social fabric of Bermuda. I believe that from a IB perspective, our value proposition is extremely strong. However, when it comes to the social context, it's fragile. and it's extremely fragile. And we have to do everything that we possibly can to make sure that, we listen. I think I mentioned that real listening brings people closer together. We've been doing some interesting things in international business to make sure that people who might have been downsized for whatever reason have an opportunity to retool and get go back to school and become qualified to re-enter the industry. But that's a tough question, and I'm not sure exactly what the right balance is, but I know that we look very carefully and have a lot of respect for all the stakeholders of Bermuda, and we try to work together as efficiently as we can.
Any other questions? If not, we'll have Dr. Cook to give thanks. Stay there.
I have to stay here while you do this?
Fellow Rotarians, I can only think of one reason why Betty Jean asked me to thank our speaker. And that is because I knew him at a stage when I think you said somewhere in your speech, we're dealing with things we never imagined before, right? Imagined in the past. And I can honestly tell you that at that time, I never imagined what you would be doing today, okay?
I think that's a compliment.
It's difficult to say to you how proud I feel. I mean, I honestly think you got a little bit of me. I got a little bit of you too. Anyway. Are you Scottish? But, the analogy I kept thinking of when you were giving this speech, well, one is a map, all right? People joke with me because I always have a map. The first thing I look for is a map, okay? I want to know where I've been, where I am, and hopefully I'm able to figure out where I want to go, okay? And a map sometimes helps. And I'm glad the map is in your hands, right? Okay? The other image I was thinking of is our motto, quo fata furunt. Now, a lot of people misunderstand what that means. They say, oh, whatever happens, wherever the wind blows is blah, 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 whatever will be kind of thing. It doesn't mean that at all. It's the complete reverse of that. What it actually means is whatever fortunes or misfortunes are cast in front of them, we will overcome them and will go on to create a new dimension. That's what you're talking about. That's the spirit of Quo Fata Furunt. And I want to thank you for coming here and reminding us of that once again. Thank you. And you now, I don't know if you have to prove to anybody where you've been, but you could hang this on your wall, okay? Put it behind your desk and say, if you want to know where I've been, that's where I've been.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone.